Chapter 9. Rome, a bitter disappointment. No sooner had Augustine arrived in Rome and found lodgings with a fellow Manichaean when he became seriously ill. Suffering from a very high fever, he was convinced that he would die. The thought of death terrified him, and no wonder. He lived a life far from God, and no one living far from the Lord can face death with peace in his heart. However, he was nursed excellently, and after a while he began to recover. He had not believed that he would ever get better. It would be a long time before he realized that his mother's prayers had played an important role in his recovery. Now that he was better, he had to get to work. He set out to find students, and to do that he had to make many visits to parents. He was received with cordiality everywhere. On top of that, the autumn rains had begun, and the mornings and evenings were rather chilly. Augustine, who had a weak chest, was used to the warm climate of northern Africa, and the cold really bothered him. All in all, Rome was a big disappointment, and he was now sorry that he had ever wanted to exchange Carthage for the eternal city. Its steep hills tired him considerably, and the sharp stones on the roads caused his feet pain. Each evening, after having spent the day walking through Rome, he was exhausted when he reached his lodgings. The house was located in a rather unpleasant neighborhood, full of dubious Eastern characters, Greeks, Syrians, Egyptians, and Armenians. When at last he reached his attic room after climbing 6 flights of stairs, he sat down, teeth chattering with cold, in front of his little heater with its smoky, glowing charcoal. The only light available was the tiny flame from a small oil lamp. Augustine hated Rome. Never in his life had things gone so badly for him as here in this famous city. All this, after having such high expectations of the place. Also, strangers were not really welcome in Rome. Only a few years before, all strangers, including professors, had been banned from Rome as unproductive consumers because the city had feared a shortage of food. Fortunately, he found his friend Alypius, who set out to find him the students he so badly needed. Alypius himself had been given a job with the imperial administration and was now advisor to the treasurer general. Yes, Alypius had been very fortunate indeed, and like a good friend, he made sure that Augustine obtained work. Before long, he had quite a few students to teach. Augustine started teaching. In his free time, he and his friend enjoyed much public entertainment, although he never went to the gladiators' sword fights because he could not stand the sight of blood. One day, Alypius did go to the fights. His friends almost dragged him there. So Alypius did go, but he decided to close his eyes for the duration of the fights and to sit with his head down. Suddenly, he heard an enormous shout. The crowd was wildly screaming as the first victim fell, wounded, to the ground. At that sound, Alypius automatically opened his eyes and saw blood oozing from the victim. As soon as he saw that, he became obsessed with the cruel game and returned to the arena to see the fights as often as he could. Augustine tried to keep him away, but that was far from easy. In the meantime, Augustine experienced many strange things with his fellow Manichaeans. First, there was Bishop Faustus, whom, while Augustine was living in Carthage, he had held in high esteem. This man taught moderation, but indulged in food to such an extent that it often made him sick. Then there was the case of another Manichaean bishop that was even worse. He was caught stealing the church funds. All these things caused Augustine to doubt the whole Manichaean religion. Yet he remained one of them, but only because they might one day be useful to him. And indeed they would, which soon became evident. After he had taught his students for a considerable time, he told them in a roundabout way that it was time they paid him some money. After all, he had to live also. He was still the guest of a fellow Manichaean, but it went against Augustine's nature to be continually beholden to the man, unable to pay a cent in return. So the students would have to pay something. The next day, not one student turned up. They had decided that if they had to pay, they might as well go to another teacher. So all at once, Augustine was without a job and without money. Miserably, he went to see his friend Alypius. "What am I to do?" he asked. "I'm stranded without a cent to my name. Oh, if only I had the money to go back to Carthage." "Don't be too hasty," laughed Alypius. "We will try something else first." "What is that?" asked Augustine in anticipation. Look here. The government of Milan is looking for a lecturer in rhetoric, public speaking, precisely your subject. If you could get that position, all your troubles would be over. You would have a good, steady income. Augustine became excited. That was exactly what he needed. He would no longer be dependent on his students. It would not even matter whether he had many or only a few students. How can I possibly get that job? He asked. That will not be easy. They are holding a competition, and the one who sends in the best answer will get the job, if he has someone to recommend him. That takes care of my chances, said Augustine. I don't know a soul in Milan. Who on earth would recommend me? Well, Mr. Simactus, the prefect of Milan, that is who. Come on, that is impossible. That is possible, continued Alypius. You are a Manichaean, are you not? Well, yes, sort of, but I must confess that it no longer means much to me. That is all right, as long as you are still one of them. You are, aren't you? Certainly I am. Well then, let your landlord write to Simactus. He is a fanatic follower of Manichaeans, and he will decide the winner of the competition. If I were you, I would get it underway immediately. You may be lucky, and as far as your landlord is concerned, I shall have a talk with him myself. As soon as he got home, Augustine started working on the competition question, and his friends in Rome sent a warm recommendation to Simactus. The result was the prefect of Milan appointed Augustine as lecturer of rhetoric. Now he had a secure job and a steady income. Augustine was elated.